They told you that power is loud, that it walks in with glitter and noise, that it survives on constant motion. They lied. Power grows in quiet places. It ripens in the rooms you do not enter, in the words you do not rush to say, in the messages you let sit until their senders begin to doubt themselves. Scarcity is not absence. Scarcity is choreography. You step back and the world leans forward. You go still and the room rearranges around your center of gravity. The rare thing is not simply desired. It is obeyed. Of course they bury this. A culture drunk on immediacy cannot admit that distance is a discipline and silence is a throne. The marketplace teaches you to be always on, always reachable, always explaining, but the more familiar your presence becomes, the thinner it feels. What is common becomes background. What appears everywhere dissolves into air. So you carry yourself like the old kings who appeared only when the moment required them. Not to perform, to alter the temperature. Niccolò Machiavelli once wrote that it is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. He was not glorifying cruelty. He was calibrating perception. Love is abundant and forgetful. Fear, when ethically governed, is attention disciplined into memory. That line is a mirror. It asks whether your presence has any cost at all. If it does not, it will be spent like loose change. If it does, it will be saved like gold. Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. But then the paradox arrives. If you retreat out of insecurity, your distance smells like cowardice. If you retreat out of focus, your distance breathes authority. The difference is inner posture. The Stoics knew this. The man who masters his response masters the field. You allow pauses to do the cutting that arguments never could. You let your silence collect interest. The other person talks to fill it, reveals themselves, spends their leverage sentence by sentence. When you finally answer, the room has already bent. You did nothing theatrical. You practiced refusal. You resisted the itch to explain. The rarest discipline in an era of compulsion is the willingness to wait without flinching. Here is the first thread woven into the next. Scarcity is a psychology before it is a tactic. The mind craves what it must earn. When access to you is endless, attention to you becomes careless. Withdraw, and your absence becomes a presence of its own. People begin to prepare before they speak to you. They edit themselves. They measure. That measurement is respect. Lao Tzu hinted at it in another tongue. The water that seems soft carves stone because it moves when it chooses and rests when it must. You are not playing hard to get. You are hard to waste. And yet, the deeper you go, the more you see that scarcity without restraint is a costume. You can delay your replies, appear less, speak less, and still leak your power with every ungoverned impulse. Predictability is the death of command. The enemy who can read your rhythm can choreograph your defeat. Machiavelli's colder lesson enters here. A prince must learn how not to be good. Adapted from Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. Do not hear corruption in that line. Hear flexibility. Ethics without judgment becomes vanity. Discipline without adaptation becomes theater. You are not abandoning principles, you are abandoning the need to signal them. You move with the usefulness of a blade, clean, precise, unsentimental about timing. Here's the picture that stays in the mind. Two generals face each other across a field. One speaks often, announces intentions, telegraphs strikes with the pride of a drummer. The other waits. He watches wind and dust. He advances once, then vanishes behind a hill. He lets silence do the work of 10,000 hooves. By the time he appears again, the rhythm belongs to him. That is not luck, that is economy. Every withheld gesture stored force. Every restrained word sharpened edge. When he finally moved, the movement felt inevitable, and inevitability is the cousin of awe. But then, another turn. You do not build scarcity by starving the world. You build it by feeding your craft. Disappear to sharpen, not to sulk. If your absence is empty, it will be punished. If your absence is full, it will be felt. Nietzsche gives you a lantern for this corridor. He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow. When your solitude is tethered to a purpose, the silence acquires texture. People can feel the weight of the thing you are building even if they cannot name it. It is the difference between going quiet to avoid conflict and going quiet to conquer time. And yet again, the world will misname it. They will say you change. They will call focus cruelty and composure pride. Let them. Panic is the tax the undisciplined pay when discipline stops answering. The point is not to punish them. The point is to educate them. You are teaching with absence what words failed to teach with presence. The more they must work for your attention, the more carefully they will spend it. The more they must wait for your decision, the more fully they will execute it. Take this into the rooms where money and risk shake hands. Negotiation belongs to the man who is not afraid of quiet. He speaks once, then watches. The other side, allergic to silence, bargains against itself. The number you wanted was never argued into existence. It was drawn out by your refusal to fill the space. In love, something similar. You do not weaponize withdrawal to injure. You hold posture to preserve gravity. If warmth is always free, it loses temperature. If warmth returns after considered distance, the return feels like sunrise. Scarcity does not kill intimacy. It protects it from erosion. Here's the paradox that stings and heals. The more you appear, the less they feel you. The less you appear, the more they remember you. Memory drinks from the well of longing. You want your name to carry echo, not echoes of noise. How do you engineer that? Not by hiding, but by curating. You refuse the trivial and your yes becomes an event. You attend fewer rooms and the rooms you enter begin to rehearse your arrival. The camera does not love the actor who never leaves the stage. It loves the one who enters at the exact line the story needed. And yet, do not confuse rare with random. Unpredictability without a center is chaos. And chaos breeds distrust. Your scarcity must be legible even when your schedule is not. People should not be able to predict your timing, but they should be able to trust your standards. This is how you become dangerous without becoming unstable. This is how your absence feels like weather, not like abandonment. The wind does not apologize for its cycle. It returns on its own terms. And with it, the season changes. You will be tempted to narrate this new posture. Resist. Explanation is often the enemy of effect. The weak justify, the strong demonstrate. You demonstrate by living inside a slower beat. You walk a touch more deliberately. You speak half as often and say 3 times more. You look longer instead of louder. You correct less and command more. When you do need to cut, you cut once. Remember lightning, not the restless flicker that tires the eye, but the single strike that changes the shape of the tree forever. And then the final turn for today. Solitude is not just a sanctuary. It is a forge. You step away to turn raw metal into edge. You return with a presence that feels heavier because it is. The room senses the density of someone who has been with himself and did not flinch. Marcus Aurelius would nod at this. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. You do not mirror the noise with more noise. You do not meet urgency with panic. You meet both with a refusal to be moved except by your own hand on your own helm. If this unsettled you, it is working. Discomfort is the sound of an old pattern cracking. Sit with it. Let the accusations arrive and keep your posture. You are not performing a trick. You are reclaiming rate and rhythm. When they cannot reach you easily, they will reach for you carefully. When they do, you will be ready, not to be everywhere, but to be unforgettable when it counts. If you are still here, breathe once, then twice, then let the silence lengthen. Good, now you feel the outline of the crown you do not need to show. Say nothing for a moment longer. Let the room adjust, then nod once, not as permission, but as punctuation. The lesson lands in the quiet where you leave it. They think control is taken by force. That dominance requires loud victories. They do not understand the deeper machinery. Control begins long before the sword is drawn. It starts in the subtle rearrangement of another person's reality. Their expectations bend. Their confidence trembles. Their decisions begin to orbit you as if you were gravity itself. When a man rises, those who underestimated him look back and realize they have already moved according to his will. They just never noticed the moment they surrendered. To rise in a world obsessed with speed, you slow the room down. You make people wait for your reaction, your approval, your displeasure. You let their imagination do the punishing. When someone is unsure of where they stand with you, uncertainty itself becomes a leash. The leash does not pull violently. It barely moves at all. A simple pause can tighten it around their choices. They will fill silence with confessions. They will fix problems you have not yet mentioned. They will offer concessions you have not yet demanded. They will obey invisible rules because they fear the cost of misreading you. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote that men are driven either by fear or by love. And that fear is held by a dread of punishment that never fades. not the strike itself, but the possibility of it. Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. Victories earned through affection fade. Victories earned through imagination last. You do not threaten. You allow them to wonder what crossing you might cost. Their mind supplies the consequences. The mind is always harsher than the moment. But here is a truth whispered only among rulers. Direct control is messy. Subtle control is elegant. Control that announces itself invites rebellion. Control that feels like freedom generates loyalty. The greatest trick of power is letting someone believe the outcome was their idea. You suggest with tone, not command with force. You plant a seed of doubt in one corner of the conversation. A question that seems harmless. Later, when they change course, they will call it intuition. They think they moved. They do not see the hand that set direction. Consider the river. It does not wrestle the rocks into submission. It redesigns the land slowly, without noise. One day a mountain looks different. Who gives the water credit? Control does not need applause. It only needs compliance. If they call you clever, you miscalculated. If they call themselves wise for following you, you have mastered the room. But here comes the paradox again. If you cling to power too tightly, it shatters. If you handle it too gently, it slips away. True control is a dance between distance and presence. You remain close enough to cause consequence but distant enough to remain ungraspable. A man cannot control what he must constantly defend. You want them to guard your influence for you. They will do so if they believe your success is tied to their safety. You become the tower they take shelter in during storms. They protect what protects them. Yet, do not forget the darker law. The one who controls information controls behavior. Knowledge is leverage. Secrecy is insulation. You do not reveal your entire mind. Once they understand your rules, they can predict you. Once they can predict you, they can weaken you. Keep curiosity alive. It generates caution. The question, what is he thinking, is more powerful than any command. Mystery is not decoration. It is a shield and a leash at once. There will be moments when emotion tries to hijack strategy. Anger wants to strike early. Pride wants to speak first. Ego wants to prove it is unshaken. A rising power must resist these impulses like poison slipped into wine. Patience is not weakness. Patience is the pause before precision. The blade that arrives late often cuts the deepest. Those who rush to respond reveal their hand. Those who observe quietly choose the battlefield. Control often looks like doing nothing, but the nothing is tactical. You wait for others to expose their intentions in their attempts to guess yours. The ambitious talk too much. The anxious give too much. The arrogant assume too much. You collect these mistakes like currency. At the right moment, one sentence of yours will outweigh 1,000 of theirs. The timing turns the whisper into a verdict. But use cruelty with surgeon's discipline. The fear you craft must be clean. Bullying is chaos and chaos backfires. Refuse the desire to humiliate. Humiliation seeds hatred and hatred remembers. Machiavelli warned that men forget the death of a father more easily than the loss of their patrimony. Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. If you take dignity from someone, they will plot night after night to reclaim it. When you must correct in a way that leaves them still able to stand. You want compliance, not vendetta. Here is the next revelation. You do not need to command everyone, only the right few. Power is amplified by hierarchy. Influence the influential. Convince the decision maker. The crowd will follow its shepherd. This is leverage. Moving the many by guiding the one. The illusion of equality is a luxury of the powerless. A rising power understands structure and climbs it while others argue about fairness. But beware the intoxicating thrill of control. Many men rise a little, taste the sweetness, and then lose composure. They become visible too early. They speak as though they already dominate. Those who announce themselves invite opposition. Those who move quietly accumulate inevitability. Your rise must feel to others like the weather, gradual, unstoppable, too natural to resist. One day they look around and realize you have become the atmosphere. Everyone breathes according to your presence. Control is not the same as coercion. Coercion is quick and visible. Control is slow and invisible. If someone resists you and you overpower them, it is power. But if someone resists you and then convinces themselves to obey you, it is mastery. And that kind of obedience endures. Your greatest ally in this ascent is self-governance. He who cannot command himself will never command others. You separate desire from decision. You let logic rule timing. When someone tries to provoke you, you let the provocation pass through the cold chamber of restraint. You adapt, not react. Marcus Aurelius lived by a line that applies here. You have power over your mind. Realize this and you will find strength. Adapted from Meditations. The world can pull on your emotions, but it cannot move your will unless you allow it. Control begins inside your own skin. You refuse to be manipulated. You recognize flattery as bait. You see guilt as a lever. You detect urgency as a tactic. The moment they cannot read your emotions, they lose control of their strategy. Emotional opacity is armor. Your calm becomes terrifying because it hides calculations. When you do show emotion, it must be chosen, not spilled. A well-placed flash of disappointment can devastate more than anger screamed for hours. And now, the climb becomes sharper. People will attempt to define you to reduce their fear. They will label you arrogant, distant, complicated. Do not correct them. Let their assumptions become their cage, not yours. You do not owe them the comfort of understanding you. Confusion is control. Predictability is surrender. Remember the seed of all strategy. Every interaction either strengthens your influence or spends it. Choose which. Spend influence only when the outcome demands it. Here is the ultimate refinement. You do not merely want compliance. You want anticipation. The room should already move toward your will before you articulate it. That is the highest form of control, when the world edits itself in your presence. You are not manipulating reality. You are authoring it, quietly, efficiently, without celebration. Control is not a crown placed on your head. It is a crown others begin to imagine when they look at you. And eventually, imagination becomes belief. Belief becomes obedience. Obedience becomes order. Stand taller, even when no one watches. Speak slower, even when they demand answers. Smile less, but mean it when you do. Study the temperature before you move, and move only when the movement creates ripples. One day soon, someone will ask, who gave him the right to shape the game? The answer will be no one, and that will terrify them more than anything else. Control is not something you take. It is something they give without noticing, and when they finally notice, it is too late to take it back. There is a moment in every rise when the air changes. You feel it first, others feel it later. A quiet recognition forms behind their eyes. They begin to weigh their words. They start rehearsing before they approach. The careless tone of the past disappears like an old season. They do not yet call it respect. They call it caution. But caution is simply respect disguised as fear. You have not claimed control. You have become the condition for it. Yet this shift brings a new war. One fought behind your ribs. Because power is never given. It is tested. The universe will present you with temptations crafted precisely to expose the cracks in your discipline. Praise that tries to soften you. Attention that tries to distract you. Enemies who pretend to be allies. Allies who quietly pray to see you slip. The higher you rise, the sharper the eyes that watch for your fall. A rising force cannot afford laziness in the mind. The crown you are constructing is invisible, and that makes it harder to carry. So you fortify yourself with a truth most men run from. Control is not dominance over others. Control is dominance over the self that wants to rush, to boast, to celebrate prematurely. The self that wants to be seen winning instead of quietly ensuring the win is inevitable. Nietzsche warned, when you look long into the abyss looks into you. Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, 1886. Power reflects back every insecurity you hide. If you have not tamed your impulses will become the puppeteers of your decisions. A man who conquers nations but not himself is only a slave with a longer chain. So you sharpen the silence inside your skull. You learn to tell the difference between the voice that wants applause and the voice that wants legacy. One burns fast and leaves ash. The other builds slowly and leaves stone. You choose stone. You choose what endures. But here is the cruel beauty of control. The more you master yourself, the more transparent others become. Their pride gives away their weak points. Their fear telegraphs the direction of their retreat. Their desire exposes the lock. You become the key. They believe they are making independent decisions, but in truth they are reacting to you. Without ever forcing a hand, you create a pattern in their behavior. They mirror your pace. They match your tone. They watch your eyes for guidance. You slowly become the axis on which conversations turn. People will try to study your strategies. They will ask, what is his method? What is his motive? They will never find the whole answer because the answer is not visible. It is internal. It is the discipline to remain principled without becoming predictable. It is the difference between ruthless and reckless. Ruthless cuts one thread and changes the entire web. Reckless swings wildly and becomes tangled in the ruins. You rise by making cruelty useful and compassion strategic. Still, even a rising power must decide how to handle loyalty. Not everyone deserves proximity. Not every supporter deserves a seat at the table they did not build. But those who truly believe in your future will reveal themselves. They offer their strength without asking for your downfall as repayment. Those are the ones you elevate. A single loyal mind is worth more than 100 eager hands. A rising man does not collect followers. He selects pillars. Machiavelli clarified this far before any modern guru pretended to discover it. The first impression of a ruler and of his intelligence is from the men he has around him. Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. You want those who stand with you to signal strength, not drain it. So you trim your circle. You create a perimeter. Loyalty inside, distance outside, no apologies. And yet, do not build a fortress around your heart so high that you can no longer see the horizon. The ultimate goal is not to hide from the world, but to shape it. Control is not retreat, it is positioning. You rise not to escape conflict but to choose its terms. Courage is quiet when power is real. A time will come when you must step forward. Not loudly, not suddenly, but unmistakably. You will make one decision that alters the terrain. You will take one opportunity that others feared. Your move will look bold to the world, but you will know it is simply the next step in a plan that began long ago in a quieter version of you. And this moment will terrify them, because they will realize that while they were seeking applause, you were seeking leverage. While they were posting victories, you were engineering them. While they were chasing validation, you were studying outcomes. That is when the crown they never saw begins to cast a shadow. Your presence becomes instruction without speaking. Your silence becomes verdict without trial. You show them that you never needed permission to rise. The room listens differently when you speak not for approval but for direction. The eyes that once overlooked you now search for signals. The same people who doubted your path will claim they always believed. Do not resent them. Their fear has simply matured into recognition. Here is the final secret. The one kings learn when the crown fits their skull. Control thrives when others think they can still say no. Influence feels like freedom to the influenced. You do not crush wills. You guide them. You create a world where the logical choice always aligns with your intention. You make self-interest an arrow that points at your vision. They follow because it benefits them. They stay because it fascinates them. They obey because the alternative feels like chaos. You are no tyrant. Tyrants rule by chains. You rule by gravity. And gravity does not apologize for its pull. When they ask who you are, you do not answer. The question is already proof that roles have shifted. Let them define you with their reactions. Let them call you cold. Let them call you distant. Let them call you calculating. These are mispronunciations of the word effective. You are not the person they remember. You are the person they will need to remember. From this moment on, you step into rooms as if every eye owes you attention. You speak as if every word must justify its cost. You move as if hesitation is a foreign language. Your power is not a future. It is a current. It flows already. Do not rush. Do not boast. Do not blink. Let them feel the difference. Let them learn the new rules. Let them adjust their tone. Because once a man discovers he can control the game, he no longer asks to play. He takes his seat at the table he built in silence. If this disturbed you, it means the transformation is already underway. If this spoke to the part of you that refuses the ordinary, then you are ready for the next evolution. If you want more scripts in this exact style, sharpened for power, persuasion, and dominance in any arena, tell me one thing. Which world do we conquer next? The moment you realize you can bend reality, you also realize how fragile it is. Power is not a throne. It is a pressure, a force that must be maintained from within, not displayed from without. This is where the true separation begins. The ordinary believe control is a victory over others. The exceptional understand control is a victory over the version of themselves that once begged for recognition. You are now walking a path where applause is a distraction and validation is a trap. Every time you crave to be seen, you reveal a weakness. Every time you demand recognition, you admit dependency. You rise above both. You let your work speak frequencies that applause cannot measure. You let your silence grow roots. You let your presence become something they have to earn. Because when you stop needing approval, you become someone others need approval from. The world loves loud men until a quiet one enters the room with purpose behind his eyes. Silence offends those who expect you to shrink. Silence intimidates those who do not know what you are calculating. Silence forces them to look inward and confront their own uncertainty. You are not quiet because you have nothing to say. You are quiet because not everyone has earned the right to hear you. A ruler does not shout. A ruler is felt. Niccolò Machiavelli understood this when he warned that a leader must learn how not to be good. Adapted from Niccolò Machiavelli, The Prince, 1532. He was not inviting cruelty. He was commanding clarity. You do not owe your power to the comfort of others. If your rise threatens them, that is a symptom of their stagnation, not your ambition. The world will try to guilt you back into the box you escaped. Let them try. Guilt only works on men who doubt their direction. You no longer doubt. That is why others fear what you are becoming. They fear what they cannot influence. They fear what they cannot predict. Most of all, they fear that you have stopped needing them. The man who is self-sustained cannot be controlled. The man who has mastered his emotions cannot be exploited. The man who chooses patience while the room panics becomes the architect of the outcome. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the mind adapts and turns each obstacle into fuel. Paraphrased from Meditations, you are no longer threatened by resistance. Resistance is proof the world is adjusting to your new magnitude. Problems do not slow you. They signal the next strategic shift. Pressure does not corner you. It clarifies direction. And clarity is control. This is why you must restrain the urge to prove yourself. The truly powerful do not chase correction of opinion. They let the results reveal the truth. Their victories do not need narrators. Their presence does not need description. What others think becomes irrelevant the moment they begin reacting to you. Their analysis is proof of your influence. You want to know the strongest position a rising man can hold? It is not dominance. It is inevitability. When they realize opposing you only delays the outcome. When they sense that even your silence is progress. When they finally understand that you do not need their permission to advance. That is the cold, quiet terror of a man in full control. You do not chase their fear. You allow their imagination to sharpen it. Because if a man must constantly remind the world he is strong, he is not. True strength is recognized without introduction. True power is acknowledged without argument. True control is exercised without announcement. And so, the story changes, not with fanfare, with temperature. The room grows still when you enter. People lower their voices. They hesitate before interrupting. They measure their statements. They wait for your reaction. The same mouths that once doubted you now speak carefully in your presence. They have not become polite. They have become aware. The rise is complete when the world adjusts its behavior, not its words. But do not misunderstand. This is not the end of ambition. It is the beginning of authorship. You have moved from surviving the world to shaping it. From being influenced to influencing. From reacting to directing. You now carry the responsibility of a mind that can alter destinies, including your own. The universe will continue to test you. Not because you are weak, but because you are a threat. Every great figure was forged by friction. The blade that cuts the deepest is the blade tempered longest. So you rise correctly, with restraint, with precision, with intention. A man obsessed with control must avoid the intoxication of chaos. The bullets you fire should be rare and irreversible. The words you release should be final and unforgettable. The steps you take should rewrite the map beneath you. Friedrich Nietzsche left a warning sharp enough for a rising ruler. Beware that. When fighting monsters, you yourself do not become a monster. Friedrich Nietzsche, Beyond Good and Evil, 1886. But what if becoming a monster is the point? The answer is simple. You do not become a monster for destruction. You become a monster for protection. For your vision. For your empire. For your name carved into the centuries that come after you. Control is not cruelty. Control is guardianship of power that was earned. not gifted. Now hear this without fear. The version of you that once apologized for wanting more has died. Buried quietly in a grave marked with every moment you undervalued yourself. In his place stands a strategist, a ruler in the making, a man who understands that power is not handed to the worthy. It is seized by the prepared. And you are prepared. From now on, you do not react, you choose. You do not ask, you position. You do not hope, you engineer. Your silence is strategy. Your presence is pressure. Your mind is the lever that moves the earth. The final law of control is simple. If they cannot influence your emotions, they cannot control your actions. If they cannot predict your actions, they cannot prevent your rise. If they cannot prevent your rise, they will eventually serve it. You are no longer learning power. You are becoming its source. Walk forward and do not look back. The world is already adjusting to your gravity. Because once a man knows he can change the room, his next step is to change the world. And that is what comes next.